Truth is, I am Iron Man.
I solemnly swear that I am up to no good.
What is going on? What are you doing?
To infinity and beyond!
This is the way.
The flux capacitor.
Is Star Wars the one with the little wizard boy?
Chewie, we're home.
Avengers!
Assemble.
Ah, chills. Literal chills.
Hello, fellow fans, to United We Fan, the podcast. United with me is my co-host, the uniquely Bryan. What's up, Bryan?
Hey, everyone.
We hope our fellow fans enjoyed our last episode where Bryan and I discussed some of our favorite football flicks. On this week's episode, we'll be celebrating the Halloween season with The Simpsons. To help us do so is our resident Simpsons expert and friend from our partner channel, CKCC Radio. Happy to welcome this week's guest host, Commissioner Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me back on, United We Fan. It's a pleasure to be back.
Oh, it's always good to have you, Chris. And the crowd went wild for you, so they're happy to have you back.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
But first, thank you all for uniting with us as we talk about all things fandom. United We Fan is partnered up with CKCC Radio. They have a large variety of podcasts on their channel, including the show The Nerd Table with Chris co-hosting, as well as Ranking Tracks with Jeff. Jeff recently did a Ranking Tracks for Eddie Van Halen, who sadly passed away, where he ranked Van Halen tracks. And Jeff already knows how happy I was that he gave a shout out and recognized the greatness to my favorite song, Love Walks In. Chris, Bryan, you got any love for Van Halen?
When it comes to Van Halen, I mean, there really is the two versions of Van Halen, but I really can't say that I prefer one to the other just because of the fact that I will rock out to Jump at any opportunity, but I will also rock out to Running with the Devil. So really, I'll take any Van Halen there. I have a soft spot for 80s. It's almost I can't call Van Halen cheese music because it's really not, but that synthesizer with the guitar riffs and everything from the 80s that was just so popular that Journey's really good at. I love that music. It's always going to have a special place in my heart.
Yeah, I will admit, I did know of Van Halen, and then with the passing, I was like, oh man, because I've been doing a thing where I marathon band albums, and I decided to do that with Van Halen. And one, I didn't realize there were so many songs that I knew and really enjoyed. And then when Love Walks In, which they confirmed is about meeting an alien, I just put that song on repeat. And then, of course, I thought of a fun 80s movie preview to make for that. So I just fell in love with that song. Jeff also did a Halloween Ranking Tracks, so I appreciated him being in the Halloween mood with us. And once again, I thanked him for recognizing another favorite of mine, A Nightmare on My Street, with DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, Will Smith.
And bootleg Freddy Krueger.
Yes. If you listen to it, you'll know right away, like, oh yeah, it's bootleg. For everyone who doesn't know the history, they wrote the song for A Nightmare on Elm Street, but the filmmakers were like, nope. So, and if you look up pictures of the album cover, they had to write on there, not in any way associated with the film. But I love that song so much. It's a great track for Halloween.
I just can't hear DJ Jazzy Jeff without imagining him being thrown out of the mansion's front door.
Ah! Oh, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Yep. Well, I still think it's my number 2 favorite, but my number 1 favorite goes to Somebody's Watching Me. That one's definitely my favorite from Sam Rockwell.
Can I throw a shout-out song out there that I want all your listeners to look at, too? Because I threw this out there on the Nerd Table.
Oh. Yeah.
Gentleman by the name of Jonathan Colton, who wrote the brilliant songs for the Portal video games that caught on really quickly and basically became memes of their own. He did a song called R-E colon, like an email, like you're responding, Your Brains. And the whole song is about an office worker who's been turned into a zombie and how he really wants to eat the brains of his fellow coworker.
Okay.
It's a really fun comedic Halloween song, and it doesn't get nearly as much recognition as it should. And I want everybody to go check that out. You can find it on Spotify. Look it up on YouTube. R.E. Your Brains from Jonathan Colton. I think you'll be pleasantly amused.
Well, I just added that to my Spotify playlist, so thank you for that. And I have to correct myself. I said Somebody's Watching Me, sung by Sam Rockwell. The actor is extremely talented and knows how to dance and sing, but the actual singer for the song is just Rockwell. So my bad. But Sam Rockwell, I'm apparently thinking of you.
You had me Googling Sam Rockwell and everything. That was news to me, man.
Look, watch Iron Man 2.
I was just picking Justin Hammer singing from that stage at the end of Iron Man 2.
Yeah, when Sam Rockwell comes out there in Iron Man 2 and he's got his little James Brown dance moves, don't tell me that man couldn't probably do a good song and dance.
Iron Man 2 rocks, by the way.
Oh, dear. All right, well, we're going to invite Chris back for our...
I'm Team Chris on that.
You know what?
I've got an ally.
Iron Man 2 is, I think, one of the most underrated Marvel movies. So, but also, I'll even go a step further. I enjoy watching Thor, The Dark World.
If you were going to stop at Thor, I was going to agree, but Thor, The Dark World, that changes things a little bit.
I love how the crowd went real quiet.
Maybe I need to watch it again. Maybe I need to try it again.
It's more fun after Endgame.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll try it again.
Watch Thor, the second one again, and just go in there wanting a fun Thor experience where you can see him loosening up. Natalie Portman, they really didn't do her much favor with her dialogue in that movie, but, it's still a good movie.
But speaking of Thor and Natalie Portman, it was confirmed that this week that they're going to start filming Thor: Love and Thunder in January. And Natalie Portman confirmed that she is going to take the mantle of Thor as she's struggling with cancer. So it's going to be really cool tie into real life and just how her character battles with cancer and all that kind of stuff. But that's going to start filming in January in Australia. I
love what they did with Thor Ragnarok, or as my friend Frankie calls it, Thor Fraggle Rock. I love the direction it's going. I know Chris Hemsworth was about ready to be done, and he was like, no, you know what? Let's see what Taika Waititi can do. And he just brought so much greatness to it. And Natalie Portman, she is a brilliant actress. She is an Oscar winner for a reason. But how they wrote her in the first two movies, they really didn't do her too much justice. So I'm excited for what this filmmaking crew and team can do with the Thor movie and that storyline. Yeah, she had a big falling out with Marvel Studios, so it's good to have her back. I think Taika is going to be able to do a lot more justice than the first two. Plus, he's just a brilliant man. He's someone, if I could do a top 5 celebrities, someone just to get a beer with and chat, he's definitely my top 5. You know how much I forgive the wrestling pun here, but I marked out when I found out he was involved with The Mandalorian, and then I heard him voicing IG-11. I thought that was perfect casting. He directed and he got to play a character, and that's so perfect. Yeah. Which is very Taika. He does that in just about everything that he does. If you don't know who Taika Waititi is, he's the voice of Korg in Thor Ragnarok. The mean kid's back.
Thank you, Thor.
Hey, let me know if he bothers you again, okay?
Thank you very much. I will.
Please watch his movie, What We Do in the Shadows. Yes, there's a TV show out now, but you need to watch. This is one of the most brilliant horror vampire comedies ever written. Yeah, I've watched the first episode, and I'm like, why did I sleep on this for so long? Yeah, shame on you. I can't wait to watch the next. I'm behind on a lot of TV shows. I'm still finishing Avatar: The Last Airbender. I know. I know. I'm behind on a lot. I also run a podcasting empire, and I'm trying to get back into writing. May I plug my blog real quick, because I actually have started my next blog. Yes, I know, Lord Chris, with your podcast empire. Please tell us more. My podcast empire. No, I ripped that off from the Arcadian Vanguard podcasting network of Bryan Last, who constantly refers to it as an empire. And I kind of thought that was funny because he does the same thing. He's got the multiple shows on the one channel. Finally, I know that a lot of you guys aren't big on the Big Bang Theory, but because the show ended,
I actually went back and did a top 10 of my favorite supporting characters. So you put the main cast to the side and focus on the best supporting characters that ever came in. And I actually wanted to pitch that idea to you, Mark, that because I know you're a big Friends fan, that would be a really interesting top 10 if you could remove the main 6 characters and come up with a top 10 list of the best Friends characters, the best recurring characters.
Well, for our Friends episode, we did touch on that because we wanted to see how much love there was for like Gunther and Janice and Richard. So we actually ended up falling in love with Ross and Monica's parents. They got a lot of love from us.
Yeah, and then Mark scolded me because for some reason with me it always comes back to Paul Rudd. So
oh, good lord!
Well, because it's Paul Rudd, the ageless wonder.
Mike Crap Bag?
No, Mike. No, just Crap Bag. First name Crap, last name Bag.
I will admit he does play a very mean air piano keyboard on that one episode of Friends. And Mark and Bryan's World Polls. Next week on our Halloween episode, I'll have some fun Halloween flick winners for you all. But in the meantime, Bryan, you had a recent Mount Rushmore. Take it away.
Yeah, so on my most recent Mount Rushmore, I announced my Mount Rushmore of children in my house. I've got my 8-year-old, my 6-year-old, and my 3-year-old who have come up on this show a handful of times. I try not to do it as much as I do, but there has been the birth of a new little girl at our house. Her name is Parker, named after Peter Parker. She is, and her middle name is Margaret, named after Peggy Carter from Captain America. So
many nerd goosebumps right now.
She's an absolute sweetheart. She was born 6 weeks early, so we still haven't gotten her home from the hospital yet, but she's doing really well. Mom's doing great. It's a blessing to have my Mount Rushmore of children, and we'll just leave it at that. So she's a sweetheart, and we're happy to have her.
Chris, do you have a Mount Rushmore of children?
Yeah, I don't have kids. I have cats. So
that counts.
I have 2 cats now, and I've had 2 cats previously. I've actually had 3 cats previously, but one was technically my mother's. Oh. The other 4 were mine. So if I Mount Rushmore my cats, I could Mount Rushmore that. The 2 who sadly no longer with us, and then the 2 crazy monsters who live with me currently and create ruckus in the house. But no, I do not have any biological children that I am aware of.
Oh.
And
so Chris,
it's cheaper that way.
Chris, you have 2 cats, but do you have 2 cats in the yard? And anyone?
And any in the cradle?
Yeah.
Oh God. Doing the man in the moon. All right. Anyway.
So yes, Bryan, you are a recent parent and family man on this show. I do not have any children. I was like, if you would like for me to Mount Rushmore my Steven Spielberg movies, that would be like having to rank my children. That's probably the closest I could get. Nobody wants me to Mount Rushmore my Steven Spielberg movies. That's fine then.
Didn't you already do that on a previous episode?
Look, you can never talk about Spielberg enough. Just let it go.
All right. That's fair.
All right, fans. This week's episode is sponsored by our good friend and faithful listener, Piano Rob. Take it away, Rob.
Hey, everybody. This is Rob Volpe. You may know me as Piano Rob from Jelly Rolls. If you want to check me out online, you can do it on Facebook at Piano Rob with 2 B's, or you can find me on Instagram at piano_Rob. You can find all information on any of my upcoming shows or merchandise there. I have a show coming up at the Boathouse at Disney Springs on October 23rd, Friday night from 8:30 to 11:30 p.m. And again, you can find all that information on my social media pages.
Now it's time to head to Springfield and see what horrors the Simpsons have for us in their treehouse. Chris, I did call you our resident expert. Please tell our listeners why I see you as our resident expert.
So I've probably been a Simpsons fan longer than I've been anything else, to the point where I actually have a podcast on CKCC Radio. It's currently on a couple weeks hiatus at the moment, just because my schedule got too busy. That was the one I chose to. I furloughed it. Let's put it that way. I furloughed Stupid Sexy Podcast because I was really focusing on launching the Nerd Table, and since we are ending Wrestle Talk, I'll be able to focus back on Stupid Sexy Podcast. But and we've got some cool stuff planned for the channel, like a new show on the horizon that I can't get into too many details with right now, but it'll fill the Wrestle Talk void, and I'm excited about. But the reality is, The Simpsons has probably been my biggest fandom of all time, and that's over Star Wars, over pro wrestling, over all that stuff that I've loved even since I was a kid. Even like Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers and stuff that I was way into when I was a kid. Even monster trucks and NASCAR and stuff like that I was like, I collected all the toys and everything. No, it was always The Simpsons. I started watching The Simpsons when I was in, I'm going to just go ahead and say probably kindergarten or first grade. And even though I was a little kid, my parents recognized the fact that I was intelligent enough to differentiate the fact that this was an adult cartoon. I wasn't going to, imitate stuff. I was never one of those kids. I was never going to fly like Superman or whatever those stereotypes were. The kid jumped off the roof. They knew I could watch The Simpsons and not have an issue. And I was a kindergartner around the time that the second or third seasons were pretty much new. I remember this because whatever the year was in 1990 was the grade I went into. So, like, I went into first grade in 1991. I went into second grade in 92. I went into my senior year of high school in 2002. Graduated 2003. So that's how I've always remembered, like, what grade I was in what year. It's nice that it worked out that way. And Simpsons was 1990. So it was definitely a kindergarten, first grade-ish, right in that time frame. And my sister had all the shirts. I didn't have any shirts. But I watched pretty much since the very beginning. Even though those were like the newest seasons, Fox would replay the hell out of the show. So I would watch it ad nauseum, just Simpsons all the time. And then it was new episodes all the way up until, I'll give you a best guesstimate, but around the time I moved to Florida and started working for Disney is when my life got really hectic. Because, college, as hectic as college can be, you're still kind of on a schedule. But working at the theme parks is kind of all over the place. So I fell out of watching new Simpsons. But I will tell you this, even though that was around like season 20-ish, I always watched the new Halloween episode no matter what. When it was new, I made sure to watch it. And even now that I don't have cable, I make sure, because it goes on Hulu the next day, I will watch it the next day, that Monday morning. I will be watching the new Halloween episode.
Let me ask you this. Do you think, as far as like TV broadcasts go, we in America, we know the Super Bowl, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Do you think the Simpsons Halloween episode, would it be too bold to say the Simpsons Halloween episode is in maybe the top 5 or top 10 of annual American television events?
I don't actually know if that would be too bold of a statement, because I used to have the Simpsons World login info. Before they put it on Disney Plus, I would watch it on FX Now. And one of the things you could do is you could actually see the popularity of each episode and how often it got watched. And it was like a little bar, right? Like at the bottom, and the little bars would go up as to how popular it was. And every season had one bar that was just taller than everything else. And every time you highlighted it with your mouse, it said Treehouse of Horror. Every season. I would say that even people like me who don't really watch new Simpsons episodes, not just because of the drop in quality, and I can't really say it's a big drop in quality because it is still introducing people to a new generation. It's just that it's been going so long. You guys know this. You guys have both been fans of television shows that you feel like have gone on for a season too long. I just mentioned Big Bang Theory. I would have preferred at least 3 of those seasons to be gone. I'm sure Friends probably could have lost a couple.
Nope. Friends is perfect. Move on.
Okay, if you say so. But you know what I mean. Everybody's watched a television show where you're like, they should have ended it. The Office is a perfect example. Once Steve Carell left the show, I think we should have wrapped it that next season. Because there was too much drag out after that.
I'm going to save that for our Office episode. I have feelings on that.
Okay, that's fair.
I think, honestly, the show that first popped into my mind with that is the show Arrow. I think it went 2, maybe 3 seasons too long.
I've heard that from several people, too. Yeah.
And so, yes, we can hear everybody shouting at your speakers, Game of Thrones. I understand.
Oh, dang. Yeah. How was that not the first thought in my mind?
Because Game of Thrones actually went on the perfect amount of time. They just rushed the season. That was the problem.
Right.
There
That's
you go.
fair.
Okay. Yeah. I'm with you as far as Simpsons. I didn't get into it until I think I was in 5th grade where I started watching the reruns, and I remember the Simpsons arcade game is where I believe I got started with going to Chuck E. Cheese. You had the Simpsons arcade game there, and it was, oh gosh, you can't play the Simpsons, you can't watch Simpsons, and then that game was there, and me being me, I was like, I'm gonna go play the game.
I have quarters.
I have tokens. Here we go. And then, like you said, the Simpsons did repeats. I remember coming home from school, Fox did like an hour of the Simpsons, and I would watch it. My parents trusted me, and they would go, okay, we'll watch it with you, like making it seem like they didn't want to watch it. But my dad definitely enjoyed the Simpsons and Homer Simpson's just as much as I did. And then I think it was probably around 2005 is where I didn't plan on it, but I just kind of like hard stopped watching the Simpsons. And then obviously whenever the Halloween episodes came on, which were always in November, I always loved that they were like, Halloween's not over until the Simpsons say so. I would always definitely keep checking out the Halloween episodes.
They weren't always in November, but yeah, no, your point there.
Like
but yeah, my first Simpsons memory is the virtual Springfield computer game where you go around and go into the Quickie Mart and all that kind of stuff. Like that was my definitely where I kind of really got into it, and then I just fell off. My mom was a little bit more stringent about what we were watching when I was a kid, so it took till 5th or 6th grade before I could really watch it all the time.
Lucky you guys got good games. I got Bart versus the Space Mutants.
Virtual
I never beat the second level.
Oh, I never really got into like Simpsons merchandise. Now, my oldest niece, she's coming into the Simpsons world, and she's like, Uncle Mark, please, when you go to Universal, please buy me Simpsons shirt. So I have to do that. But for merchandise wise, God, I'm going to sound like such a fat kid. My biggest Simpsons merchandise that I buy is the giant pink donut.
Oh, do not diss that donut. That thing is phenomenal.
Oh, so good. If you guys get a chance to go to Universal and you see this giant Simpsons pink donut, get it. It is worth every penny you spend on it.
Really, the only word for it is...
Yeah, so I got some trivia for you guys about Simpsons Halloween episodes. You mentioned they're always in November. You're actually not exaggerating that much. With this upcoming one airing on November 1st, that will be the 10th Halloween episode to air in November. That's like a third of your episodes right there. Okay. That's not an exaggeration. And they had a streak going from 11 through 19. Those were all November dates.
Wow.
Which is why they do the joke with Kang and Kodos about how the Simpsons are airing a Halloween special in November, and they're just like, "Who's thinking about Halloween? We have our Christmas decorations up," and they got the little stockings with the multiple tentacles on them.
Am I crazy? Was there ever one in December? Yes. Oh,
a Simpsons Halloween in December.
Sorry for our listeners at home. Bryan was answering the crazy question.
Yeah, that's all that was.
Yeah. So. Anyways, moving on to something.
They never got that bad, no.
Okay. I couldn't remember if there was ever a delay where they had to do one like December 1st. I would have loved to have heard their jokes for that.
No, but that would have been kind of funny. I would have appreciated that for sure.
Yeah. So should we bring up the Simpsons ride at all? Just to quickly touch on that.
I love it because it's Simpsons related. But I also have mixed feelings because it replaced Back to the Future.
Yeah.
So while I enjoy it for what it is, I also am sad about what it was.
Right. I will admit this, though. It is one of the few rides that makes me a little sick, especially if I ride the lower level off to the side because it is a curved screen really bad. So that's my one flaw with it. And like you said, if I had to compare it to Back to the Future, which one would I rather take? Oh, Back to the Future 10 out of 10 times. But on its own, it's a fun time. If you like The Simpsons, then you'll definitely like the ride.
Yeah, I think it's the only ride that makes me sick. I've never gotten sick on anything else really, but that ride, I get sick almost every time.
Yeah, you know what? Now that you guys mention it, that is one of those rides that does get you a little good. The only rides that usually make me sick are straight up spinning and straight up drops, which is why I will only ride Tower of Terror if I've taken a Dramamine, because that drop motion makes me nauseated, which is why I don't ride Tower of Terror as much as I would like to. Because I love the ride itself, but it's the straight drops get me. And I will never, ever go on teacups, ever, because that will be projectile vomiting, and nobody wants to deal with that.
Every moment I live is agony.
Bart, you're getting vomit on my prints.
Nobody wants to clean up my protein spill.
Well, now that we sound like the three old men.
I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was. Now what I'm with isn't it, and what's it seems weird and scary to me. It'll happen to you.
But I don't get sick on roller coasters, so whatever.
Hey, there you go, you little thrill seeker, you. Yeah. Let's start with favorite intros. And Chris, since you're our guest, take it away. Give us some of your favorite intros.
So Simpsons Treehouse intros historically always started with a lot of tombstone gags, and then they would do a couch gag that would be kind of Halloween-y. They'd be zombies, or they'd be hanging, or they were skeletons or whatever. So they started basic. They started getting a little more creative. But the one that got me the best was when we got to season 25, which was special number 24. By the way, for those of you out there, if you ever trying to figure out which one to watch, go for the next number up, because they started in season 2 was the first one. So like this is season 32. We're getting special number 31.
And to everyone out there, I did have a hard time with this whenever Chris and I were planning this episode, and Chris was nice enough to be patient with me as I was trying to understand this.
Well, because you always go by season number, and I went by actual episode number.
Episode title, yeah.
Yeah, we were always one number off.
It shouldn't have been that difficult, and when that light bulb ding went off for me, I was like, oh, right, okay, right.
Guillermo del Toro directed a Simpsons opening for Treehouse of Horror number 24. And not only does it look brilliant, but it has so many horror references that I've actually watched the YouTube video where they break it down and pause it and tell you what they're referencing. Because there's like the zombie, there's like the zombie outbreak. They're shooting the zombies. There's giant monsters attacking. They're referencing their old stuff too. And the whole thing, like, they have the Christine car drives Milhouse off a bridge.
Yeah.
They have Alfred Hitchcock himself throws bird feed on Mrs. Krabappel and the birds attack her.
Yeah.
The citizens are running from all the classic horror monsters. They have all the different vampires. They have all the different slashers. They even have references to Pan's Labyrinth, Alice in Wonderland. And they even throw in the Hypnotoad.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Which is great because 24 itself as an episode is way below average.
Yeah.
Although I do enjoy the Cat in the Hat parody that came with it. But the intro itself is great. Go on YouTube, everyone, and look up the Guillermo del Toro Simpsons intro. It is one of my top 5 probably favorite couch gags the Simpsons have ever done. Right alongside the Rick and Morty one and the Homer Evolution.
I think, honestly, that intro alone is, like, worth watching that episode. Like you said, the segments aren't that great, but they start off on such a grand high note with that intro, and it's a beautiful intro. Like, art-wise, animation-wise, it's beautiful.
And the references come so fast, you really do have to pause it to catch them all. Especially when they do the pan over when they're heading towards the house. You have to actually pause it because there's references to all kinds of 50s monster movies. Day the Earth Stood Still. And I can't even think of all of them because it happened so quickly.
Yep.
Cthulhu's in it.
Bryan, do you have a favorite intro?
Yeah, I was stuck between 2 of them. It's Treehouse 8 when the Fox censor guy comes on and kind of edits the book. That one really makes me laugh. But
that's a good one.
overall, number 20 is my favorite one, where you have the classic monsters, the mummy and Frankenstein's monster. When Frankenstein's monster reaches back in and shuts all the equipment off just to save the electricity bill, that cracked me up. But you have all the classic monsters, and they go into the Halloween store, and they come out as Iron Man and SpongeBob and Jack Sparrow and Harry Potter.
Oh yeah, they modernized themselves.
Yeah, they end up at the Simpsons house and drinking beers and hooking up with whoever. And Homer says it doesn't count if you're in costume, and all the wives show up and end up killing them all. It's pretty funny. That was my favorite opening. I liked
That's
it.
a really good one. That's a really good one.
That episode is actually a pretty good one too, the Treehouse 20. I mean, because it has the Alfred Hitchcock segment that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
So that's a good intro episode 1 as well. I went with season 12, Treehouse 11. They did a parody of the TV show Monsters opening, and I just love everything about it. It very faithful to the Monsters intro. Is it the most creative as far as both of y'all's choices? No, but it's the first one that stuck out to me and has stuck with me so long. So I think that's why it's my favorite.
I think what kills me with that one is the angry mob kills all the monsters except for Lisa because she looks normal. So she just casually walks away.
I love how she like kind of looks around and just this like whistle walks away, like, you know, just leaves everybody burning in her family, but it's okay.
That episode has the Kang and Kodos epilogue where they're like, I can't believe we've been left out of the Halloween special. No, hang up the phone. They're trying to call. And then they get booked to do an Old Navy commercial.
Yeah. Did that actually happen, though? I wonder if Old Navy ever actually followed through on that gag. I feel like that's a missed opportunity.
I don't think they're hip enough to do that. I think that might actually be the joke.
Old Navy, if you're listening, thank you for listening. Food for thought. Take the Simpsons up on that offer. Just contact Disney. I'm sure they'll be happy to play ball.
You guys are really you higher ups are really bored to listen to any podcast that has me on it. If you're gonna,
well, that's why
you guys are doing.
They listen to us, so I'm hoping that they will branch out to you, Chris, from us.
Wouldn't that be sweet?
Yeah. Well, not all intros were winners, and Chris, can you maybe think of some intros that didn't wow you up just off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, no. Because whenever they've done an actual intro, they've usually made it pretty fun.
Yeah.
The only ones that would actually be like... I mean, there were some they did that were just super simple, like Homer goes to light a jack-o'-lantern, lights himself on fire, and that's the intro.
Yeah, there's the Krusty being the headless horseman, just throws his head at the screen, and that's it. That's all you get.
You don't need anything else. That's
Yep.
So I don't think intro wise they've ever really done a bad one.
Okay.
God, I'm blanking on which one this is, which is going to kill my fandom cred card. But they do the one where they intro all these celebrities for their Halloween special, and then they're all dead, and it's all celebrities who have turned them down for voiceovers.
I don't know that one.
Oh God, I feel like we need to Google that real quick.
Got it. Week 25. They're doing a Johnny Carson style opening, and they're like, here's all of the guests announced, and it's Clint Eastwood, George Clooney, John Travolta, because they did actually turn them down for voiceovers before. So then it's just all their bodies just skewered across to spell Treehouse of Horror.
Only The Simpsons.
It's more recent than I thought it was.
Yeah,
Sorry, guys. You can rip a corner off my fandom card for that one.
We'll leave it there. There's a lot of intros to go through, so I think we'll give you a pass on that.
A lot of stuff blends together.
Yeah. The intros, I agree, though. It's even when the earlier ones were just changing the names on the tombstones, those are fun little, like, blink and you'll miss it, but they're still, like, funny. So I think The Simpsons is one of the greatest shows as far as intros and keeping each intro fresh and not just recycling it. That couch gag is one of the most brilliant concepts ever done for a show, I think. Well, we did our favorite intros. Now let's get to favorite segment. Woo! Take it away, Chris.
So my all-time favorite individual segment ever done on a Treehouse of Horror is from Treehouse of Horror 5, the opening segment, which is called The Shinning.
You've got the shinning.
You mean shining.
Shh, you want to get sued?
It is a brilliant opening to one of the best overall episodes that they've ever done, with all 3 segments combined together. And it parodies the entire Shining movie, which has over a 2-hour runtime, in like 7 minutes. They do it so brilliantly. It starts off funny with the whole, it takes them forever to get to the lodge in the first place, and they got the sound effects going. Wait, we forgot Grandpa at the gas station. And they keep driving. What about Grandpa? And then Homer goes crazy because Mr. Burns cuts off cable TV and the beer, thinking that that would give him the honest work. Oh, I thought the blood gets off at the 2nd floor. There's a reference to everything, including one of my favorite gags of all time, which is no TV and no beer make Homer something.
And for everyone, if you wanted to look that one up, is from season 6, Treehouse 5.
So I will say, Chris, this for me is for a lot of people, big Simpsons aficionados, this is always one of the most popular segments for sure. For me, it was kind of underwhelming. Maybe it's just my lack of familiarity or lack of love for The Shining. Maybe that's what it is. I just didn't catch all the references. But is that kind of what brings it to the top for you? As you're a big Shining person?
Yes and no. Yes, because it's parodying something that I really like, one of my favorite horror movies. But also, I always appreciated Simpsons parodies that I thought were written brilliantly, had great gags, and did the source material justice. And this is one of the prime examples of that. Because even if they parody something that I'm not really a big fan of, but I still get the references, I'm going to appreciate it for what it is. Like, I'm going to see if I can find you a really, really quick example here. Not that they've parodied stuff. Okay, here's a good one. I'm not a huge fan of the I Know What You Did Last Summer movie. It's okay. Not a huge fan of it.
Yeah.
But they parody it with I Know What You Diddly Italy Did, where they run over Flanders. And the parody is so brilliant, and the jokes are so damn funny.
But it was worth it to get back our Super Sugar Crisp cereal. Can't get enough of that Sugar Crisp.
I'm having a hard time seeing. Homer, did you remember to put the fog lights in?
Guess I forgot to put the fog lights in.
That it became one of my favorite shorts as a direct result of that. I'm not overly familiar with the Island of Dr. Moreau. I know what it is.
Yeah.
But when they did the Island of Dr. Hibbert, I appreciated it for what it was because, again, I wasn't really big on Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but they did a good parody of that. So, it's just one of those things where when they do the parody well, I very much appreciate it. Even if I am a fan of the thing that they're parodying in, and they do it well, that just makes me love it more.
Yeah, and I'll go with this because this one, Treehouse 5, is actually my favorite. The episode as a whole. The Shining, I appreciate where it is in movie history.
You are so getting sued.
I know. I'm sorry. The Shining is a good segment. As for the film that it is inspired by, I'm not a huge Stanley Kubrick fan, and the book, I'm going to even get some hate mail for this. As a Shining storyline, I actually like the TV miniseries with Steven Weber.
I don't think you get a lot of hate mail for that because you're not the first person I've heard that from.
Wow. Yeah, don't get me wrong. The Shining, Jack Nicholson and Shelley Long, brilliant. The visuals in The Shining, I loved when in Ready Player One, we go to The Shining. I got goosebumps. But as a whole... Yes,
when H is losing it.
Yeah. As a whole, I definitely like the miniseries. But going back to The Simpsons, The Shining, and then you have for the second segment, Time and Punishment, where Homer has his magical toaster, and then at the end he just gives up. And
what the hell are you smiling at?
Just starts stepping on everything. And then Nightmare Cafeteria, which was inspired by Soylent Green, where the teachers are eating the students. And then Principal Skinner just...
Bart, does it strike you as odd that Uter disappeared and suddenly they're serving us this mysterious food called Uterbraten?
Oh, relax, kids. I've got a gut feeling Uter's around here somewhere. After all, isn't there a little Uter in all of us? In fact, you might even say we just ate Uter and he's in our stomachs right now. Wait, scratch that one.
As far as I prefer, this episode is my favorite episode.
You know what the best thing that they did in this episode was? Willie gets an axe to the back in all 3 segments, and by the last one, he just goes, "I'm bad at this."
Yeah. So this one's definitely my favorite episode. And then, Chris, you said the shinning was one of your favorite segments. Bryan, you got a favorite segment?
Am I, real quick, blanking on the shinning? Am I missing? Did they ever do a reference to the twins from The Shining? I'm not remembering this.
Yes,
Yep,
it was cut.
they did.
It was cut from syndication, but
Okay.
yeah, basically Bart's skateboarding. He sees Sherry and Terry, and they're going, "Your daddy's gonna kill you," and then he sees Patty and Selma, and they go, "They're right, you know."
Okay. It seemed a little too easy not to do, so I guess that would explain it. Well, Mark, you did talk about one of my favorite segments. I really like the Time and Punishment, where Homer's traveling through time with the toaster. It's just so funny when he talks about he's going to all these alternate realities, and he's so happy with the one because they're all proper, and then he asks for a donut, and Marge says there are no donuts, and he freaks out and goes and time travels, and then it starts raining donuts from the sky, and Marge goes, "It's raining." So that one always cracks me up. But I actually really like from Treehouse number 2, Lisa's Nightmare, the episode with the monkey paw, and just all the different references.
Ron, he's got a board with a nail in it.
So I just love that entire monkey paw episode, and then Flanders gets the monkey paw, and then Homer at the end. I wish I had a monkey's paw. Like, just all that when she says, "Where did you get that?" And he goes, "I got it from that stand over there. There's a dirt devil right there." And no, it was actually over there.
And he's waving. That actually was a finalist for one of my favorite segments with the monkey's paw.
That's a good one. I really like Treehouse 2 was fun because it was only one of 4 episodes that had a narrative that told the stories, because they had the first one had them in the actual treehouse telling ghost stories. The second one, everybody has a nightmare. The third one's the Halloween party, and the fourth one is the Night Gallery parody.
Night Gallery.
Yeah. And they stopped doing it for number 5 because they realized they weren't going to be able to come up with something new and original to wrap everything together each time, which I actually think was probably good because they ended it while they were on top. But
Yes.
I always like Bart, I had a bad dream. Can I sleep with you? No, I'll give you a candy necklace. And he immediately eats it.
Hop in.
Thanks, Bart. Let's talk. More sleep.
And then I do love when Homer is in that pawn shop.
Take this object, but beware, it carries a terrible curse.
Ooh, that's bad.
But it comes with a free Frogut.
That's good.
The Frogut is also cursed.
That's bad.
But you get your choice of topping.
That's good.
The toppings contain potassium benzoate. That's bad.
Can I go now?
Clown Without Pity.
Yeah.
A Twilight Zone parody.
Yep, the Clown Without Pity, that one's my favorite. I laugh every time Homer's taking a bath, and when it's evil Krusty, and he tries to kill him, and he runs out naked in front of Patty and Selma, and they're like, "I've lost my appetite."
Yeah, that was Patty going, "There goes the last lingering thread of my heterosexuality." And then what happens a couple seasons later? Patty's a lesbian.
And then
so Treehouse of Horror is canon. That was my takeaway from that.
Yeah. So yeah, Clown Without Pity is from season 4, Treehouse 3, and then spoiler alert, of course, when Krusty, they just have to switch him over to Good Doll. Poor thing has to clean Homer and do chores for him, and he then goes home to she's not a Barbie doll. What is
Malibu
Lisa's doll?
Stacy.
Malibu Stacy at the end, and her head falls off. So that
makes it all worth it, baby.
Yeah, Clown Without Pity is definitely my favorite segment.
That's a really good one.
Treehouse 3 was one of my finalists for my favorite episodes. That entire one, Clown Without Pity, is great. King Homer, when he is just King Kong, but there's one specific part in that one where all the island natives are just in a circle and they're shouting Mosi Tatupu, Mosi Tatupu, Mosi Tatupu. And for those of you who don't know, he's a Samoan football player that played in the early 90s for the New England Patriots and the Los Angeles Rams. Just that entire joke is hilarious. Then when Flanders shows up, Headless Flanders shows up and Grandpa has the heart attack, just all of that. And then when they're putting all the zombies back in their graves at the end, he goes,
Excuse me, I'm John Smith. John Smith, 1882. My mistake.
That episode was one of my finalists. That entire Treehouse 3 is really funny.
I did not get that football player gag, so thank you, Bryan, for letting me know
That
that.
goes over a lot of people's heads. And I remember reading that in the trivia for the episode and being like, oh my God, nobody would get that. I don't get that.
So thank you, Bryan, for enlightening many of us. Do we have any segments that stand out to us that just didn't quite work?
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow, Chris.
Go
take
ahead.
it away. Yeah.
Uh-huh. All right. So real quick, I'm going to give a quick, this would not be a shout out. This would be a shout under or shout in. The opposite. I get what they were going for with Married to the Blob and Homer, but we don't need any more things with Homer being fat and eating. We just don't. We've done it so many times. It's a done gag. It's not clever. The only thing I liked about Married to the Blob is when they're like, we're also being attacked by a 50-foot Lenny. And he's like, everyone's paying attention to Homer.
Yeah.
But the one that stands out for me as the worst short also comes from an episode that overall I thought was really, really weak. And that was from Treehouse of Horror 22. It's called The Diving Bell and Butterball. And basically, Homer gets bitten by a radioactive spider. Then he's paralyzed, but he can communicate by farting. And it just becomes a big fart gag. And to me, that was just such a missed opportunity where they could have parodied Spider-Man in a funnier way, but maybe they're going to succeed when they do the Into the Homerverse this year. But I just thought the fart gag got to be a little too much. And I remember just rolling my eyes and being like, I need this one to end. And then they do the Dexter parody with Ned Flanders, which is okay. But it's less Dexter, more Simpson-ish stuff, which sometimes it works. Like when they do Tweenlight, they focus on more Simpson-y gags and just have Twilight as the, I guess, like the bread for your sandwich. That the meat of it is still Simpson gags. Yeah. And then they do the Avatar parody, which was another one I thought was a missed opportunity. They probably could have done that a lot better. Instead, it's just that Avatar was the hot thing, so they decided to capitalize on it. But all they really did was just make an excuse to parody Avatar, and they didn't really. I don't feel like there was a lot of heart in it.
Yeah, I'm there with you as far as disappointed. The two that popped in my mind were in the Na'vi, which is their Avatar spoof, and I feel like, how do you not succeed on that? Like Bill and Ted, excellent show over at Halloween Horror Nights, which sadly was discontinued. They had Avatar gags that were hilarious, and you go, the Simpsons can make this, like they can do something successful, and it really just didn't come off that well. But also E.T. Go Home from Treehouse 18. Me being a Spielberg fan, which I don't know if you all knew this, I'm a huge Spielberg fan. I was excited for this, and not only did that, I feel like they missed the mark with that one, but when Mr. and Mrs. Simpsons actually was a better parody than that, I just go, oh man, all right, well, good for them, but yeah, the UT Go Home just kind of disappointed me.
Yeah, when we're talking about disappointments, the biggest disappointment for me was actually last year when they did Danger Things, the Stranger Things parody. I just think there were so many opportunities that they missed. They did a good job at poking a lot of fun at the 80s stuff and all the 80s references and all that kind of stuff. But overall, they call it out in the middle of the episode too. Somebody hasn't watched enough of season 3, and then they throw in one little thing from season 3 in there. But there was just so many missed opportunities and so much more they could have done with the Stranger Things that I was just disappointed in it.
Yeah, and I mean, right after that, you had what is it? Heaven
Swipes Right.
Thank you. Yeah, that episode just, yeah, that was a hard one to get through.
Yeah, that's another one where Homer dies and comes back to do stuff. They've done that before with Homer as the Grim Reaper and Homer as a ghost trying to perform good deeds. That was a missed opportunity. And then they did the same thing with The Shape of Water when Harry met Slimy. And again, it was just because that was the hot thing, so they went for it, but didn't. They were focusing more on the parody than the actual writing
Content
of the episode.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy Danger Things, but I totally get what you're saying, that they could have done more. But the one thing I loved about episode 30, Treehouse of Horror 30, was the Omen prologue where they said it's the mark of the beast and it's Mickey Mouse, and I laughed so damn hard.
Yes, I will give them that one redeeming quality of that episode for me.
Do you guys know how The Simpsons gets away with all of their rippings of Fox? How they get away with it? It's actually in their contract that Fox can't review the episode before it goes out. That's how they've always parodied Fox. When they do like, welcome back to Fox News, your source for evil. And there's like a scroll on the bottom, like, do Democrats cause cancer? News at 11. Like they've always gotten away with ripping on Fox just because of the fact that Fox can't review the episode. That's why they've always mocked it. They've always been like, oh, there's great programming to watch on Fox, and then they laugh.
I definitely noticed that whenever the Simpsons make fun of baseball on Fox.
Yes.
They love to rip the Fox baseball coverage.
Yes, and they do. But what's Fox going to do about it? It's their biggest success. What are they going to do?
This podcast I watch called Score the Podcast, it has on there a former Fox Music executive and Robert Kraft. And he was talking about The Simpsons and how they get away with so much as far as when it comes to Fox, because they're like, well, Robert Kraft goes, well, when you're bringing in almost $1 billion annually, Fox will let you do anything. And The Simpsons, they were one of the first where Fox allowed them to do a modified version of the Fox intro. And originally Fox for the longest time said, no, this is our intro. You can't touch the music, can't touch anything. And for like the Simpsons movie, for example, you have Ralph singing the Fox intro. It was one of the rare times where Fox said, oh yeah, you're the Simpsons. Go ahead, go for it.
Futurama got away with it by doing 30th Century Fox.
Yes. Oh, Futurama, extremely underrated.
And only ever did one Halloween episode.
Oh yeah, I need to go back and rewatch that. Now that's the Halloween season.
Yeah, it's the only one they ever did when a Bender becomes a werecar.
Yeah,
it's called The Honking, and it's really funny. The last ghost died over 600 years ago. Yes, but the robot ghosts are still out there.
Ooh. Getting back to it, we went over my favorite episode, which was the season 6 Tree 5. But Chris, what is your favorite episode?
Treehouse of Horror 3 from season 4 is overall my favorite. It's actually my favorite Simpsons episode, period. Out of the entire series, if I had to pick a regular episode, I'd probably go with Who Shot Mr. Burns Part 1.
Yes.
But if I'm being honest with myself, Treehouse of Horror 3 is my overall favorite Simpsons episode, period. And Bryan already kind of touched on this, and you did too, Mark, about why this one works as well as it does. But the reason it's my favorite is because it's got the narrative, and the narrative is funny. The Halloween party, every segment has a joke in it, from Homer ripping off his toga to ruining the Halloween game to wanting to go to the store when Lisa's going to tell a scary story. Then he botches a scary story and Grandpa takes over. And then Grandpa has his heart attack when Ned shows up. And then...
But I've got a story so scary, you'll wet your pants.
Too late.
And Lisa does it before she introduces her stories, and the Simpsons will do this when they need to be scary, where you'll zoom into their face and their eyes are looking in opposite directions.
Yes. It's unnerving, and it works.
It works, and you're just like, it's so simple, but Lisa, stop it.
Yes. And then, like I said, Dial Z for Zombies would be first. Clown Without Pity would be second. King Homer would be third if I had to rank them. But that doesn't mean that, like, King Homer wouldn't be in my top 10 overall out of all of them. You know what I mean? And Clown Without Pity is a perfect example of something that parodies the source material very well and does it better because it's a parody of Living Doll from the Twilight Zone. Also throws in a little bit of Child's Play and Gremlins in there. And the whole thing is just back-to-back jokes. It's got that fast pace that The Simpsons were known for because it knows it only has 7 minutes to tell a story, so it's going to get everything in it can. The Krusty Doll is hysterical. One of my favorite jokes is when he's approaching Homer doing the evil laugh and his string runs out and he gets Homer to pull it again so he can keep laughing. Again, King Homer, perfect example of parodying an entire feature-length film in only a couple of minutes. They rush through stuff, but they absolutely do it brilliantly. The when he eats Shirley Temple made me laugh. Then he can't climb the building because he's too fat.
I also like when he's eating Lenny, and he's like, "Stop eating me, Homer."
Yeah, and then Carl shoots him, and he's like, "Oh, nice shot, Carl." And then when Burns tries to throw the gas grenade, and he's so weak that it just lands in front of him.
I'm a good ship. Lollipop. Oh gosh, Mr. Burns.
King Homer is absolutely brilliant. And then Dial Z for Zombies, that's another one. The pacing is spot on. That episode moves along so quickly and it gets in every joke possible. Because once the zombies actually start invading, it's just back to back with Skinner going after Martin. Sideshow Mel kills Krusty, and they make the reference to the 3x5 cards that we all know as kids growing up watching like Nickelodeon game shows. Always wrote it down in a 3x5 card. And that's got some of my favorite lines too in it. Like, did you wreck the car? No. Did you raise the dead? Yes, but the car's okay.
Homer, did you barricade the door?
Why? Oh, the zombies. No.
And my all-time favorite joke in any Treehouse of Horror is...
Hey, Simpson, I'm feeling a mite peckish. Mind if I chew your ear?
Dad, you killed the zombie Flanders.
He was a zombie?
That's my favorite Treehouse of Horror joke ever, and I still laugh hard when I hear that joke. Like, not even like a giggle. Like, I laugh. I belly laugh at that.
That joke kills every time. Well, Brian, you got a favorite episode out there?
Well, while Chris is talking about the favorite particular joke, my favorite joke honestly comes from it's Treehouse number 4, I believe. It's the one from The Devil and Homer Simpson, where Homer has his thing, but the devil turns his head into a donut at the end, and Lisa's like, "Dad, don't go outside." And Chief Wiggum's out there with the rest of the police, and like, he's gotta come out sometime, boys. That's my favorite joke from any of those, but it made me laugh. I would like to, if you will indulge me, I have 2 episodes. I can't pick my favorite between the 2, so I'll go through both of them quickly. First is going to be season 13, episode 12, Hex in the City, where the Homer goes to get a leprechaun to break a hex that he's had put on him from a gypsy. House of Wax, when they turn the house into a smart house and Pierce Brosnan is the voice. You also get Matthew Perry as the voice. Could I be any more of a house? But when
how about 007? George Lazenby?
Oh.
But when they turn the house into Pierce Brosnan and he becomes obsessed with Marge, just all of that one makes me laugh. And then Whiz Kids, the Harry Potter parody
Hang on. You got to go back to when they give poor Pierce Brosnan over to Selma Patty, and he's trying to
not in there.
Self-destruct, and they're like looking for this.
It puts the self-destruct button between her chest. Yeah, that's funny.
Homer, you're alive. Mm-hmm. Oh, which is good.
He goes down the stairs and
Die, you monster!
Dad, that's the water softener.
Well, I am missing the back of my head. I think you could cut me some slack.
And then the Whiz Kids, the Harry Potter parody that they do, and the vomiting frog that I think Chris. That vomiting frog makes his place in several episodes. I feel like I recognize him from.
Yeah, that becomes a running gag that he's appeared in future episodes, usually as a throwaway gag, but that's always oh yes, remember we did this and people liked it.
Yeah.
The thing I want to call out from WizKids is the fact that Smithers is named Slithers and he's a snake, and then he eats Morty Mort or
Lord Monty Mort.
Yeah, Monty Mort. Yeah.
Dying tickles.
Yeah, Bryan, this is a good one. This is in my top 5, so I'm glad you brought this one up.
That's a really good one. I do appreciate that one.
The other one that it was tied with, and overall probably my favorite, is season 7, Treehouse 6.
Mm-hmm. My number 2.
Attack of the 50-Foot Eyesore, Nightmare on Evergreen Street, and Homer Cubed.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that Bart is the devil on the devil's shoulder when he's ripping the school apart is just the funniest thing to me. That cracked me up. All the advertisements come into life. I really like that one. And then the Nightmare on Evergreen Street, that one I remember as a kid with Willie with groundskeeper Willie being the Freddy Krueger of the town.
That was actually kind of a scary episode or segment.
When he murders Martin and Nelson goes, don't wheel him into the kindergarten.
He's leaving the class and the sheet falls off.
But wait, and then groundskeeper Willie, what does he turn into? Like a lawnmower? Or he turns into was it the bus?
Tractor. Yeah. He turns into several things.
He's his own tractor.
Yeah.
He's a mower, and then he turns into a giant bagpipe spider.
Oh, I love the bagpipe spider.
And Maggie plugs the exhaust port. Well, we were talking about favorite segments. The only reason I didn't bring this one up is because it was going to be in my favorite episodes is Homer Cubed, when he goes in that third dimension and you see just kind of what computer animation used to look like, but just all of that. That episode is hilarious.
Oh, there's so much I don't know about astrophysics. I wish I read that book by that wheelchair guy.
When you consider that this episode aired the same year as Toy Story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that segment is just brilliant because Homer goes into that other dimension and you just see them trying to get him out. I love Bart on the light pole. Oh, hang on. This will get me closer.
Yeah.
And you see the gag when the camera zooms out and he's not really closer at all.
Homer Cubed is my number 2 favorite segment after the shinning overall in the entire history of the Treehouse of Horror. So I'm really glad you brought this up. It's another one. I think the pacing is perfect. They get all the jokes in there, and then even when the pacing slows down, it's on purpose. Like,
man, this place looks expensive. I feel like I'm wasting a fortune just standing here. Better make the most of it.
Absolutely perfect.
We have to talk about poor Homer walking down the street, and at first you're like, oh, he's scared. Oh, nope, he found an adult cake shop. He's fine.
Ooh, erotic cakes. They shot that in Sherman Oaks in L.A.
Oh, did they?
Yep.
I feel like, do you think that joke would have been told nowadays, or do you think they would have cut that adult cake shop joke out?
I think a lot of early Simpsons jokes wouldn't fly today.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. That's one that wouldn't have flown today, though. I think that one they could have pulled off. I mean, we pulled it off in Parks and Rec just a couple years ago, too.
True.
Right. Yeah. They. I really think it really just depends on the context. But yet, Treehouse of Horror 6. But between 3, I would say 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are perfect episodes overall. And the only reason I don't include 2 is because Homer's Nightmare is just a little on the weekend for what they were doing at the time. And I appreciate the Frankenstein parody, but I don't think it holds up as well as the other ones do. Yeah. And to me, that's the only real downside to Treehouse of Horror 2. But I would say the first 6, you know what? I'll even branch out and say the first 8 Treehouse of Horrors are almost perfect top to bottom between all of the shorts. And if you're only going to watch a couple of Simpsons Halloween episodes, at least watch the first 8. You're going to have a good time with every one of them. From doing the Genesis tub, the Omega Man, with comic book guy getting killed.
But Aquaman, you cannot marry a woman without gills. You're from two different worlds. Oh, I've wasted my life.
We can't go on without talking about Comic Book Man and the Xena segment.
Yes, desperately seeking Xena from number 10, which also has that's another one that's actually on my favorite list because it's the I Know What You Did Last Summer parody.
Yep.
The Xena episode, which was amazing, and then the Y2K hysteric episode that they did.
Well, I just love it when they're like, "I told you I'm not Xena, I'm Lucy Lawless," and then they just go, "Oh yeah," where she's flying. Like, oh, that explains it. It's
Xena
fine.
can't fly. Well, I'm not Xena. I'm Lucy Lawless. Also, one of 2 Halloween episodes to actually air on Halloween.
Oh yeah.
Number 2 and number 10 both aired on October 31st. They're the only ones.
Oh, I just love that title though. I know what you did.
Diddly did. Life's a glitch, then you die.
That's a good title too.
Boy, you must have had a hard time debugging all those computers. Doing the what now? Oh God, it's spreading.
Well, you were talking about number 7 and number 8. I think you do have to include those because number 7 has Citizen Kang in it. And when you get My Fellow Americans as a young boy, I dreamed of being a baseball. Just the entire time of Bob Dole and Bill Clinton, it just takes you back to a whole nother time, man. It's just this entire show is just a walk down memory lane.
The show has always been really, really good at satirizing politics despite the fact that it's a Fox show, it's always been really good at not taking sides and basically mocking both parties. And Citizen Kang's a perfect example of that because when they realize it's a 2-party system and the guy goes, "Well, I'll vote for a third-party candidate," Kang goes, "Go ahead, throw your votes away." When the Democratic van pulls up like, "Mr. President, we're having some concerns."
Mr. President, sir, people are becoming a bit confused. By the way, you and your opponent are, well, constantly holding hands.
We're merely exchanging long protein strings. If you can think of a simpler way, I'd like to hear it.
But that has my other favorite Treehouse of Horror line of all time. "Don't blame me. I voted for Kodos."
I feel like we can use that hashtag this year.
Yeah, that's, like I said, those first couple episodes. And, I can probably pinpoint the exact moment the Treehouse of Horror stopped being brilliant and started just being okay to fun.
Yeah.
If you notice if you ever look at the credits, Treehouse of Horror 14, actually, I'll say 13 is the last one where each individual short had a different writer.
Oh.
And when we got to 14, John Swartzwelder wrote all 3 of them. And then after that, whether it was Bill Odenkirk or Mark Wilmore or Peter Gaffney, it was always the same person writing all 3 of them. And I think that's where some of the weakness started to come in. Because before that, you had a different writer for every single one. And that's why they worked as well as they did. And even when you had multiple writers doing all 3 of them, it was the combination of all the brilliant writers from that era. Treehouse of Horror 2 and 3 was a huge combination effort between 6 individual writers on each one.
Get a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different tonal changes.
Exactly. Look at the inaugural episode that they ever did. Bad Dream House was John Swartzwelder. Hungry Are the Damned was Jake Hogan and Wallace. Well, I'm going to mispronounce his name, but I think it's Wolodarski. And then The Raven is actually credited to Sam Simon and Edgar Allan Poe.
Ah,
they did give Edgar Allan Poe. That's cool.
They did give him the credit.
I guess they kind of had to, though.
Like the Night Gallery wraparounds from 4 was Conan O'Brien was behind that.
Oh, Conan O'Brien.
So I feel like that's why those early ones work so much, was because they let each person write something instead of expecting one person to write all 3 of them, because that's when you start to see where they're focusing more on the parody instead of the quality. And maybe that's the case, maybe not. I can't really say for sure, but I feel like there's a disconnect there with how many people were writing the episodes.
So while we're talking about favorite episodes, though, Chris talked about it a little bit. Number 4, that one is great. And we talked specifically about the segment, The Devil and Homer Simpson, when Lionel Hutz walks in.
Mr. Simpson, don't you worry. I watched Matlock in a bar last night. The sound wasn't on, but I think I got the gist of it.
But when you talk about Homer, the gag of Homer just getting fat, it still makes me laugh when the devil force feeds him all those donuts and he just keeps eating and eating. Just that entire segment is really funny. The fact that Flanders is the devil.
Flanders, you're the devil?
It's always the one you least suspect. Who's that goat-legged fellow? I like the cut of his jib.
Prince of Darkness, sir. He's your 11 o'clock.
When I was really dealing with my like weight concerns and whatnot, to make myself cheer up a little bit more, I actually had that picture of Homer being fed all those donuts as a reminder whenever I needed to remind myself maybe to scale back on portions. I was like, don't be a Homer.
Forbidden donut.
Plus, they got the, you have a parody of the best Twilight Zone episode of all time.
Yep.
With Terror at 5.5 feet with Bart on the school bus with the gremlin. My favorite is when he goes, oh no, there's a gremlin on the side of the bus, and he sees Hans Moleman driving the little car. Yeah. He goes, don't worry, Bart, dude, I'll take care of it, and runs him off the road. And the Bram Stoker Dracula parody with, it's the Gary Oldman Dracula with Mr. Burns, and they parody Lost Boys in that one too. But I love when Bart just ends up getting killed just because of the fact that he has to do the super fun slide.
The thing I remember about that episode was I'd always have to remember it, but I remember the ending to the episode where they do like their little Christmas shout out. Yeah,
they say Happy Halloween and they start doing the Charlie Brown.
And you have Santa's little helper dancing.
Yeah, and Milhouse is playing the piano. Like I said, the early ones are really the best, but I want to just give a quick shout out to a couple of later segments that I don't get as much recognition as they should, just because they have happened in those later years, like in the early 2000s and on, when The Simpsons did admittedly start to have its first real quality drop. Not that it became a bad show, but it wasn't the same as it was. A couple of the ones I want to recommend that people definitely check out include It's the Grand Pumpkin Milhouse.
Yes.
From number 19. It's a really, really good parody of The Great Pumpkin. And they reference the Christmas stuff too, because they go to the Halloween party and all the kids are doing the repetitive dancing. So I've always said that one. We did mention Dial M for Murder or Press Pound to return to main menu, which is a big Alfred Hitchcock parody. That one's a lot of fun. Don't sleep on Tweenlight from number 21, which is, of course, they parody Twilight, but they brought in Daniel Radcliffe to be the vampire.
Brilliant.
And I love when they're driving through Dracula La Land, and it's every vampire ever, and every pop culture vampire is there, including Count Chocula, and then the Count who is feasting on Big Bird. These are the ones you can't sleep on these. And as you get later on, a lot of stuff just kind of becomes kind of an kind of thing, but they do a really good one called Coralisa for number 28, which is a Coraline parody, and it's really done well with they bring in the animation. They have the others from number 25, which is a reference to their old Tracy Ullman versions still living in the house and being trapped there.
Yeah, that one's funny.
Such a good one.
And then at the end, they have different versions of all the characters show up, parodying South Park, Archer, Adventure Time.
Yep.
Minions. They throw everything out there. And even some of the real later ones, there's always going to be the occasional gem, even if the other stuff doesn't really stand out as well. There's always something really funny in some of these later episodes that I always recommend people check out. Like even the one with Tweenlight as a whole, they do a parody of Jumanji, but they parody all the board games coming to life.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
And they also, I remember my favorite part was like, what if we don't finish the game? You're going to have to deal with more nonsense like that, where it's a Yahtzee parody and it's 5 characters as Yahtzee things. And Sideshow Mel's one of the dice, and he's like, oh, at least the cup is lined with felt. And Mo just goes, hey, Mr. Positive, shut the hell up. And that also has the Dead Calm parody with Master and Cadaver, which has Hugh Laurie on it.
Oh, yes. I have to give a shout out to earlier on, the Treehouse 9, the Hell to Pay. I always find that one entertaining.
That's one that people sleep on too much, but I think that one's really funny. Plus, that has the terror of Tiny Toon when they get sucked into Itchy and Scratchy and they have to use cartoon logic to escape. And then Homer sits down and goes, "Ooh, how are Bart and Lisa going to get out of this one?" Like I said, and I said it at the beginning, and I'll end my overall impression of Treehouse of Horror on this episode of United We Fan with this. Even when The Simpsons has dipped in quality, you can always watch the Halloween episode, and even the bad ones, you're still going to have a good time watching. Because they pull no punches, they do all their parodies, they do whatever they want because it's non-canon, so they'll just kill people in horrible ways. And even ones that are you kind of roll your eyes at, nothing's cringeworthy. Even the Diving Bell and Butterball, which I believe is the worst short they've ever done, it isn't cringy. It's just I rolled my eyes at it. And there's a big difference between that.
That seems like a great place to wrap this up. Well, that concludes this episode. We thank you, fellow fans, for listening. Please give the show, rate, or review wherever you listen so we can unite with more fans out there. Let's hear it, everyone, for our guest host, Chris.
Thank you. I would say I'll be here all week, but I will not be on the next episode. But I will be back. I always appreciate you guys having me on, and you are always welcome to come sit down at the nerd table with us or get in touch with any of the other CKCC radio hosts. If you're interested in being on any of their shows, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to have you. And if you guys want to check out more of this goodness, you can find CKCC Radio anywhere you get your favorite podcasts.
And definitely check out, for those Simpsons fans, Chris and his sexy podcast. I still love that name.
Sexy podcast.
Stupid Sexy Podcast.
Again, one of my favorite gags. Because it's the parody of one of my all-time favorite gags, which of course is when Homer loses control of his skis and tries to remember what the instructor said, but all he can remember is Ned in his skin-tight skiing outfit.
Okay, don't panic. Remember what the instructor said.
If you ever get into trouble, all you need to do is...
Feels like I'm wearing nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Stupid sexy Flanders.
Well, it's definitely great stuff. And thank you, Chris. For everyone out there, if you're in the Halloween spirit, next week on UWF, Bryan and I will be discussing some of our favorite Halloween movies. So definitely tune in for that one. For those listeners who want to get in touch with the show, please do so. Bryan, tell our listeners how they can message the show and stay up to date on everything UWF.
You can follow us on Instagram at United We Fan Podcast, or you can shoot us an email at unitedwefan.podcast@gmail.com.
Thank you all for uniting with us here on United We Fan, the podcast. Listen to us and, of course, CKCC Radio, wherever you check out your podcasts. Till we unite again, fans, if you're looking for a movie, the other day, Homer and I saw this movie about a bus that had to speed around a city, keeping its speed over 50. And if its speed dropped, it would explode. I think it was called The Bus That Couldn't Slow Down. Farewell, friends.